Here's a wild stat I was just reading earlier. I want to share this with you that according to the independent podcaster report of 2025, 72% of podcasters say their number one struggle is getting discovered. That means that most podcasters that are watching or listening to this right now have never reached the audience they deserve. And it's not because the content is bad, but I believe that the most important thing going into the podcasting space, more than anything, more important than just starting a podcast, is their strategy. So if this is you, you're producing episodes, you're posting clips on YouTube, but your growth is still flat. Stay tuned because this episode I'm going to share with you and I'm going to break down why this happens and what you can do right now to fix your growth challenge. All right, not a problem. It's a challenge. We're going to go ahead and be positive here. It's a challenge. Everybody faces it. And that's what we're going to break down. If this is your first time checking out the podcast, welcome to The Creator Factor. I am your host who loves you the most, Ozeal. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button, my friend. Yes, we are trying to push to that 1K subscribers. And I can't do this alone. We could do this together. So if you are a YouTube watcher, you stumbled upon this podcast, make sure you head over there and subscribe to get down with the vibe. You get to stay updated and be part of the tribe. That's right. We're going to do it like that. And if you're checking out the podcast on your favorite podcast app, Apple, Spotify, Overcast, Pocket Cast, all the other channels out there. If you're watching, or actually if you're listening to this globally from all over the world, thank you. Thank you for checking it out. All right, we're going to dig into this. We're going to talk about why discoverability is hard. So I'm going to be speaking to my fellow podcasters, my podcast creators. Most creators think that publishing an episode every week is enough, and it's not. Right? Spotify and Apple, they're flooded with a bunch of content. There's over roughly, they say 40 million podcasts listed. There's probably a new podcast every day that's being launched. We're seeing this medium grow even more. I just read that TikTok is getting into podcasting now. A show that grows fast doesn't necessarily have the best content. First and foremost, okay? Let me just go ahead and put that out there. So if you're an indie podcast creator and think that, oh man, but this podcaster is crushing it, what are they doing? Is it the content? What's happening? And that's always not the case. What I find to be the ones that are successful from the ones that are struggling, and this is coming from, over coaching 500, podcasters, being in a podcast network where I get to see day in and day out what works and what doesn't. Simply the podcasters that are successful just have better positioning. They know exactly what they're going to talk about, who they're talking to, and why that person on the other side should listen or watch. So if your podcast isn't growing, it's usually not a content problem. Sometimes it is, especially for the veteran podcasters. There needs to be a content audit switch. But what I find a lot of indie creators, podcasters, run into this problem. It's more of a clarity issue. Okay. So I'm going to give you one gap, and I'm going to break down 3 discoverability gaps that are happening right now. Because we all know that in the podcasting space, especially if you've been podcasting for a while, we know that it's not the audio platform specifically. It's not a discoverability platform. All right. Yes, people go on the search bar and they will look for specific topics. And if you don't have your titles and notes dialed in, your show won't pop up. That's a different topic. We'll talk about that some other time. Leave in the comment if you want me to break down a little bit of the SEO side of things. But let's talk about the gap numero uno. No clear branding. Okay. I always say that when someone lands on your show page, do they know instantly what that show is about? Who the show is for, what's the transformation that your show will give them, and why it matters. Most podcasters skip this important step. Your cover art looks cool, but your brand message is mad fuzzy. Like we don't know what's happening. So let me give you an example. Instead of, let's do this. Instead of the creative hour, helping coaches and personal brands turn their ideas into profitable podcasts. That clarity right there alone helps the algorithm and the listener know what to expect, right? That's actually a really cool show too. Cool concept, right? So it's important that you make it, not just call it the creative hour. That could be a bunch of things. Creative is a very broad term. But again, being very specific and adding even a tagline, helping coaches and personal brands turn their ideas into profitable podcasts. That's my promise. That's what you're going to get If you're a personal brand, if you're a coach, you want to take your ideas into a profitable podcast, this is the show for you to listen to, The Creative Hour. So again, being very, very clear about what the show's about, who is it for, and why they should listen. They should listen because these ideas could be profitable if they listen to the show. See what I'm saying? All right. Or do you hear what I'm saying? Shout out to my audio listeners. Let's talk about gap number 2. This is a big one. No distribution plan. So discovery doesn't happen in Apple Podcast. It happens on social. Okay. So if you're not repurposing your episodes into short form video content, carousels, clips, stories, your show is pretty much invisible. Okay. Now I always say, here's a caveat. I always say that it's hard to convince and bring social media followers into the podcasting space. It's challenging. Because when they're on social media, they are simply just on social media for entertainment, for quick bites of education. They want to laugh. They just want to get in and out, right? Just scrolling. But what I found, and I was at a podcast conference not too long ago, and it was actually a really successful podcaster from Australia. And they were saying that it's not really to convert social media listeners into podcasters or podcast listeners or social media followers into podcast listeners, but it's about building brand awareness, being top of mind, that if you continue getting in front of their feed, their scroll, that they eventually will become a podcast listener. So a quick fix here is after every episode, pull 3 short clips. I use Opus clips. If you use video podcasts, you can put it into Opus clips. I'll make sure I link it up in the show notes, and it'll cut you multiple clips that you can use. And I'll do that with every episode. I'll do it with this one, and I'll do some edits, and then I'll repost, on social media. And then I'll link this episode up. One story. Hey, what's going on? I just dropped this new podcast episode. In this episode, I talk about this, and that. You will get this. Give them the value, right? And then one quote, share that static image on social media, and then with the link to the podcast episode. And then, post it on LinkedIn, post it on Instagram, have a really specific call to action to the full episode. This is how you turn followers into listeners, and even listeners into followers. It works hand in hand, right? That's just a combination. So social media marketing is important. And I think that if you just leave it at the mercy of distribution channels like Apple and Spotify, you're in for some bad news. They're not going to really help you with that. Now, YouTube does a great job of doing that, but these podcast apps don't, right? And we want to dominate both video and audio, and that's how you're gonna have to do it. You're gonna have to get your marketing game up, and part of that distribution strategy is making sure you're present on social media. All right, gap number 3. Let's talk about it. This is a big one. And this is the one that I really help a lot of podcasters with when they come to me. All of these, but this is a big one. Ecosystem. No ecosystem. What do you? What are you talking about, man? You're getting all scientific on me, man. What are you talking about? Ecosystem. What's happening here? Well, check it out. Most podcasters don't connect their show to their business objectives. There's a lot of podcast hobbyists out there. I get it. No business objectives. They're just having fun. And there's a large percentage of podcasters out there in the space that, don't care. But here's the interesting fact, and I need to pull up the stat. I wish I had it here. But there was a stat that also shows that even though they don't talk about the money openly, they still want to monetize. So at the end of the day, the goal, even if it's just to pay overhead, pay some cost, hosting, website, social media tools, all that, it's okay to get paid. It's okay to be open and be real with it. We're creating shows. We're putting blood, sweat, and tears into the content. Why not? We should be able to at least pay overhead, right? I think that's a dream for all indie podcasters. So going back to not having an ecosystem dialed in with your business objectives, you post a podcast episode. But what happens next? You post it, probably go back to your hosting service, and then you see downloads, and then that's it. Does that sound like you? Nothing happens. There's no call to action. There's no link to a lead magnet. There's no let's stay connected, join my email list. None of that happens. So what can you do to fix it? Well, every podcast should have a newsletter. Every episode should lead to somewhere. And I believe having an email list set up is probably the smartest thing you can do as a business-minded content creator. A free resource, a cheat sheet, a link to your coaching page for a discovery call. Link it up to something. That's how you turn your podcast into a business tool and not just a hobby. You have to start thinking more like a business entrepreneur type of person. Get it? We're creatives. That's a done deal. That comes easy to us. But the thing that makes it really challenging for business-minded content creators is getting over that hump of like, all right, how do I tie this into the bigger picture? A lot of podcasters I coach are coaches. They have coaching programs. They have product. They have services, but they don't do anything. They don't think about the ecosystem once they launch their podcast. Huge, huge mistake. And that's a big problem why the discoverability is they don't even know what you do. I've had a podcaster one time that I coached, and she was a coach. She was a life coach. So she launched a podcast, and she came to me. I think she had like 20 episodes in the can already, ready to go. And then once I started asking questions, I started digging into this, and she was like saying, yeah, I just don't know how to, like, I'm not making money from this. I'm like, well, you're a coach, right? She was like, what's happening with coach? Yeah. I'm coaching, but I'm not really, doing anything. I'm not really making a lot of money from that either. And I'm like, wait a minute, you got a marketing tool, you got a podcast, and her listenership was moderate. Like it was consistent, and a few hundred, but she was getting, she was doing something with it. And I'm like, how come you don't have a call to action to your coaching program? How come you can't offer a discovery call? How come you're not doing anything related, tie this into your business objectives? And it was like a light bulb went. I'm like, you know what? You're right. I'm like, absolutely. Let's create a 30-second ad. Let's get it in there and let's start promoting it. And sure enough, she did. And, first, what happened was she ended up growing her email list. That was the first thing. And then from the email list, she started booking calls, right? Again, just making sure you let people know, hey, yes, you're getting a ton of value from this podcast, but I'm also a coach, and I happen to help people like you solve problems like this. So don't think of your podcast as just a podcast. When your podcast is part of what you do as a business person, that's when things start shifting. All right. Last but not least, I'm going to bring it home. I'm going to bring it home with this, and then I got some homework for you. Woo! I'm feeling good. All right. This right here is pretty much tying all this in. Number 4, strategy. How do you stand out in 2025? You stop chasing downloads and you start building a podcast brand. Let me repeat that. How do you stand out moving forward as a podcaster? You stop chasing downloads and you start building your podcast as a brand, period. Brand to attention, monetize, right? Or want to break down my method, brand, attention, right? That's audience, and then monetization. That's the sequence that I use all the time when I coach clients. So when your podcast is part of your brand strategy, discovery becomes easier. Why? Because you're a lot more visible. You're a lot more intentional about your marketing efforts. It becomes easier. You'll attract the right audience, not just random clicks, clicks. You're really being intentional about who you are reaching out to. So strategy, my friends, is where to go. So if you're already if you have a podcast right now and you are looking to make it discoverable and make it profitable, give me a shout. Let's chat. I can help you build out a free, we'll do a free podcast audit. I'll walk you through some of the same framework that I use here on this episode, some of the framework that I've used to get coaching clients myself. Head over to creatorfactor.net. This is my call to action. You can subscribe to the newsletter, or you can book a discovery call. It's linked up at the top of the show notes. Okay. I do have a few coaching programs that I can help you walk down based on budget and where you're at in your podcasting journey. And I can help you. Don't neglect the importance of having somebody to show you the ropes and holding you accountable to execute the thing that you are invested in. Come on. I mean, don't waste your time. I mean, you're pumping out the content. The content isn't the thing. It's all these things that are shared in this episode. All right. And most podcasters, real talk, they get lost in the noise. You don't have to be. You're part of the Creator Factor family. All right. You just need a strategy, not more gear, not more downloads. Come on. All right. So I got you. I'm Ozeal. I'm your podcast marketing coach. And for business-minded content creators like you, and if this episode helped you, do me a huge favor. Just share it with a friend. Share it with the podcaster. Share it with the creator. That's what we're about. Our mission is simple. We want to help 1 million content creators monetize and master their brand through content creation. Okay. Building a new wave of creator entrepreneurs. That is our goal. That's always been my goal. So thank you for being a part of this community. Again, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, and then I'll have more content coming up very soon, especially on the YouTube channel, y'all. I'm going to be doing a lot more podcast content, and then I do have a couple interviews that I'm looking to book here soon and finish this year strong, baby. strong. Next week, by the way, next Wednesday is my birthday. Next Wednesday is my birthday. So I'm going to do a little birthday episode. Check that out. Get ready. Send me some love. I would love to hear from you. And that's it, my friends. Until next time, peace and one love.